Hey, Mike Callan here. Going to be starting in a few minutes. If anybody is joining us early, if you can just in the message box, just let us know that you can hear the audio and see the screen here before we get going to the general public. Thanks, Amy. Appreciate it. And we're going to be going here in a few minutes. Going to let everybody get in, and we're going to go in. But things that we're going to be going over here is how to reduce the stress in the spring season, especially in the lawn care and home cleaning industry. But this will be applicable to any service industry here. So everybody, a few more minutes to get in here, and we'll get going. Awesome. Thanks, Brian, for the heads up on the audio too. So I'll give everybody another minute or two. We've got quite a few people piling in right now, so I want to make sure everybody gets in before we actually get rolling. All right, it looks like the lion's share of the people that are coming in here, if we got any people coming in late, we will have a recorded version of this. So if you're taking notes, you just want to watch and kind of relax and take it all in, that's totally fine. And then what we'll do is we'll send you out a recorded version of this webinar. So first of all, I just want to welcome any of the new people that aren't Simple Growth Systems customers. This is something that is an exclusive thing that we are now offering to all our paid Simple Growth clients. Either a weekly or bi-weekly webinar to either show you how to build automations, work on systems in your business, or employee systems. So I want to welcome the general public to this, one of many reoccurring webinars. But as Simple Growth clients, if anybody is one of our clients here, and I see quite a few of you guys and girls subscribed in right now, we are continuing to provide value to the Simple Growth client base and ongoing education and support. And this is just one of the extra facets. We are going to go and continue to drive extra value for the monthly support and update fees that you guys are paying for our automation services. But like I said, we've opened this up to the general public for one time only this week, just to tackle the biggest problem at hand. So without any ado, we're going to get in here. And basically what we're going to be looking at is reducing hiring stress and advancement strategy. So before we dive in the actual executable takeaway, we're going to be looking at the three major bottlenecks of fast growth, the cost of a bad hire, and some examples actually from my company and some of the bad hires we've made throughout the way. So not going to be sitting on a pedestal preaching here. I'm going to actually show you the good, the bad, and some of the ugly that we actually had in our company in the last 25 years. And then at the end of the presentation, I'm going to go through a system to attract career-minded employees. So we're going to avoid having to babysit these employees, but we're going to create a system that actually goes out and attracts these career-minded players and not a gentleman or lady that's looking just for a paycheck and potentially maybe just enough cash to pay their rent and a bottle of booze and a carton of cigarettes at the end of the month. Is a lot of times what we find in the service industry. So we're going to really go out and show you a very simple way to go out and recruit and sell your place as a avenue for career-minded individuals. So the bottlenecks to fast growth right now that we are seeing, companies that are going out and trying to scale at a rapid rate are growing too fast without the right people. That's the biggest problem we're seeing right now. We've got tornadoes, we've got excessive rain, extreme heat, and a massive labor shortage in lawn care as well as in the home cleaning industry. Specifically in the lawn care industry, even with the H-2B problem, where we're getting gentlemen and ladies out of, say, Guatemala or Mexico for seasonal help, the government has not helped that industry at all. So we're going to give you some ways to overcome those barriers. The second biggest bottleneck to growth is growing fast without your numbers. So knowing your numbers. At a bare minimum, we really need to know what our break-even point is, what it costs us to operate fully loaded with a labor burden before we make any profit in our business. And we need to know what we should be charging per man hour as a goal. Let me just get my computer here so it does not restart. But basically what we're going to do is go in and know our numbers in a solid basis here. So we know exactly what we need to charge and what it's costing us per man hour. So we have a profit margin built into our numbers. So we should have a price, a budgeted time, budgeted cost, and be able to go in and create a systematic production rate based estimating system, whether it's inside the home for home cleaner or outside in the lawn care industry. But we want to create a system that's delegatable to other people, so the business manager owner is not held slave to doing all the estimates. And the next thing for bottleneck your growth is growing fast without enough cash flow. So this is a major issue that we faced in my company at points and every other company I've talked to. So some of the things that we're going to dive into is look at quick solutions is basically we're going to go out and create systems for better cash flow, like having a credit card on file and an onboarding system. So the cost of one bad hire right now through my research over the last 12 to 18 months is 2 to 3 times the person's salary. So there is direct costs and indirect costs. Now the direct costs were really obvious to me. We had help wanted ads, we had screening, interviewing, training, bonuses, all those things that we know conceptually we think about. But the indirect costs were kind of shocking to me. As we started to scale and grow the business, before we had a standardized onboarding system, training system, we had lower customer satisfaction. So we were literally dumping as many new customers in our sales funnel as they were falling out the back end canceling. So we had to go in and systematize and create a standard system for customer satisfaction and quality. So we addressed that customer cancellation. And then in addition to some of those indirect costs was a reduction in productivity and a loss in team morale. So one of the things we did inadvertently was we created a piece rate pay system. So we paid the guys and girls on the crew the budgeted time, not the actual time they were working. Now, obviously, the point of this was not to avoid overtime or pay the people less. It was actually to put more money in the employees' pockets and build a team of culture and buy-in. So once we introduced this piece rate pay system, we ended up producing as a company an extra $1,200 to $1,300 a month per mowing crew without changing a single person or piece of equipment. So it allowed us to create a culture that was driven by production with a quality standard, and it raised the morale. So instead of an antagonistic situation where management and the employees were beating each other up, and the management would say, hey, you're not hitting your budgeted times, you're not getting enough work done in the day. Now we are working as a unit together and on a team pathway to say, hey, how as a company now can we help you put more money in your pocket and give the customer a better product and put more money in your pocket? So if your goal is to work, say, the least amount of hours and make the most amount of money as an employee, well, as long as you hit the minimum amount of jobs that need to be produced, we can do that. Or if your goal is to work as many hours as possible, we had a gentleman, Carlos, who just liked to work the summers and go back to Mexico to visit his family. That was awesome too, because then we were able to go in and build route density around his existing route. And if he was working from, say, 9 a.m. or say 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., getting paid to 5 p.m. because he beat his budgeted time, well, we would go into those neighborhoods he was already in and build more density. And maybe he was budgeted to 6 or 7 o'clock at night, but only working to 5. So it was a win-win for us, and it was a win-win for Carlos and the other members on that team because we were aligning with their goals. Was it more of a family fit, lifestyle, to get out of work and make as much money as possible, or was it to make as much money possible and take the winters off when we didn't do snow removal? So it allied that cultural situation. So what we found in my business is the cost of that bad hire was, believe it or not, around $125,000. So we added in the additional learning curve as far as bringing on a new employee, getting them up to speed, the extra damage, the cancellations, the loss of morale, and other parts of the people in the company actually quitting because they didn't like to work with this bad hire that was a crew leader that was just a cancer and had bad cultural fit. So these are the things that we dialed into. So before we go out in the spring and hire the first person through the door with a pulse, I'm going to give you a system here over the next 25 to 30 minutes how to actually avoid the cost of a bad hire and all the negative things that can come along with it. That can literally snowball and erode the culture that you already have. So I'm going to give you 3 low-cost, high-return hiring strategies. First one is interviews that screen for value alignment. This is going to be your mission, your vision, your values, that North Star, that what you're all about. The new millennial worker, which shouldn't be any shocker, is only motivated by enough money that gets them to what they basic needs need for the most part. What we found is when we hired these millennial workers, if we didn't have our cultural alignment, we could barely get a season out of them. But when we had an alignment to our values, and I show you in the next few slides here how we did this and how we incorporated that in not only our job offer, but in the onboarding process. Once we had that cultural alignment, we'd get a good 3 to 5 years out of these ladies and gentlemen, not just a season. So that cut down the cost and expense of that bad hire. Next thing we looked at is job descriptions that focus on culture. So I'm going to show you some real life examples here in the next few slides of what job descriptions and some of the things that look like in my actual market in Rochester, New York. And you'll be shocked at the amount of ads and how many of them did not touch on this at all. And then we're going to go into a standardized selection process. So there's no bias of who we're going into, and we're creating a virtual bench. I use the analogy of a sports team. We're going to constantly stack that virtual bench. So we've got people on the bench. So if we have people on the field that aren't producing, we have no call, no shows, or you have a crazy spike in sales in the spring season, we have people to go out and pull off the bench and put them in the production or our field for a standardized process. So I'm going to go through that on a high level, and then I'm going to walk through the standardized, basically secret to our success of going out and through either the online application process or a process inside our office that allowed us to have a cultural fit and attract the A players that wanted a career and not just somebody wanted a seasonal gig that was not continuing to evolve our culture and evolve the depth of our labor bench. So stick with me here. We're about to dive into it. So first thing we're going to do is look at the actual recruiting funnel, and then we're going to dive into the actual implementation of these A players. So first thing we're looking at here is along the screen, we've got our different areas of Craigslist, Facebook, Indeed, referrals from your existing employees. These are the areas that we're driving from online or in person to get people to come in. And believe it or not, we're actually having some really good results with LinkedIn as well for more managerial things in areas, because we can go out and recruit based on their actual position in their existing company or their past areas. Craigslist and Facebook. Facebook has probably been the #1 actual labor right now that we've seen in most markets. That's driving the most relevancy. And then referrals from employees, because the people that you really like and they bought into that culture usually hang out with the same people. So as we're driving through that interview and values alignment, then we're going to hire and onboard them, and then we're going to train and development and reinforce the culture that brought them in. That's the other biggest stumbling block, that once we got them into aligning the culture, we forgot to actually continue the alignment and reinforcement of that culture. So I'm going to show you how we did that, and then obviously I'm going to give you the executive takeaway, how to go out and do that alignment. So we want to go out and attract our company to the right people. This is an example of one of our online applications. And there, you can see there's a video embedded in that. And I mean, this is the core part of what I'm going to show you later, how we created this video or slideshow to differentiate ourselves and get those career-minded individuals. And on a high level, I'm going to break it down, but just on a real high level, we're going out and saying, what are we looking for? What will you be doing in this position? And what do you need to be successful? And if you come on board, what will make you stand out here? And a lot of the ads that I looked at over the last day or two before I was getting ready for this presentation was, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need. Well, unfortunately, given the labor market, it's what we can do for the employee just as much as what they can do for us. So we need to build that culture, and we need to build a common bond with these employees. If we're going out and completely going out and just driving, what can you give me, what can you give me, what can you give me, that is going to be the bottom of the barrel employee. And trust me, we have done that, and the results were less than exceptional. So what we really want to do is, in the rest of this presentation, I'm going to break down the step-by-step pieces that we did to create a successful cultural alignment for these employees. So, like I said, I had done a lot of research here the last few days. In the last 29 days in upstate New York, Rochester, New York, where I'm located, just north of Lake Ontario, on Craigslist alone, there was 79 landscaping job postings and 43 lawn mowing posted. So it was 122 people looking for jobs. And I had to get them on the screen here, just a portion of them. We had the lawn care ones here, the lawn mowing ones, and the landscaping ones here. You can't really see them, but they all look almost identical. What can you bring and do for my company, not what I can do for you? And I probably clicked through, I would say 90% of these. To be candid, there was a few I missed, but they all looked almost identical. No one was setting apart. There was no culture, and there was no career advancement. The farthest career advancement that I found on any of them was for a summer job. If you do everything you should be doing and you give me what I need as a business owner, you may have the ability to work year round for the winter. In my opinion, and this is a mistake that we made in the past, so no knock on any of these people who had this ad, this is where we failed as a company. And we literally went out to a place in Arizona, dropped about $25,000 over quarterly training, how to build a mission, vision, and values, and overcoming some of these hurdles to employee growth and culture. And what we took when we learned from that Arizona experience is if we posted the same jobs and looked like everybody else, we were going to get the same mediocre employees. But when we started to talk about culture and career advancement through the process I'm going to show you, that's when difference evolved in the business and things started to scale. So this is an example broken out of that. In the purple, these are the areas we were talking about culture. And the yellow things that we've highlighted here as well were just a little bit different. But just to give you an example, a perfect job here. Every time is never an issue at Callahan Hinge. We will be counting on you to give exceptional service every time you do the job. You must ensure efficiency and budgeted hourly goals while meeting customer satisfaction. That is what our culture is built around. Putting more money in the employees' pockets, efficiency, our piece rate pay system. Now, that's not all our culture is, but that's a strong part of our culture because we are working within the chain of command. And that is also listed in here. And we like to document things. So we have a clear communication with our internal customers, which are employees. We have a clear line of internal our communication with our customers. And working within that chain of command and documenting things to make sure what should happen happens each and every time the same way is part of that culture. So we want to make sure there's a reinforcement and alignment of that culture before we ever talk to the person. And we're highlighting what we're looking for, what they'll be doing, and what you need to be successful. And if you want to stand out here and be an A player, these are the things that are going to help you. We go in and highlight a culture of giving back. So this is a video that we actually will be showing you in the later part, how we incorporated this of myself and my, we're going to call it my company manager, but actually we dubbed them our company coach because we realized it really wasn't a management feature at this point. It was more of a coaching and learning scenario from the manager now. So we call them our company coach, not our company manager, because now we're all on the same team and it's almost like a sports team. We're building that bench and growing and scaling to win that championship together, not fighting each other. But this video shows myself in this very cute couple's home. We surprised them. Their daughter entered them into a raffle for free snow plowing on Veterans Day. And this is something that we like to really do in the company. We would go out and surprise a veteran. And this was a World War II veteran couple that met. The gentleman was I believe, in infantry, and she was a nurse. And they met there and ended up getting married. They're in their mid to late 90s. And we surprised them with free snow plowing. But we felt it was a civic duty, and it was something to give back to people who'd done things for the community and the country. So this was part of our culture. So we wanted to make sure there was an alignment. And this did align to our millennial workforce. So it did work not only as a play to help align the people, but it also brought in community support. Some of these things were on the local news and different things like that. But we just wholeheartedly, whether anybody knew about it or not, we wanted to give back to the community. And anybody working for us, we really wanted to align to one of those core values. So as we're constantly recruiting, we really want to create an automated system to do this. So whether you want to automate this or not, totally up to you. But I'm going to give you the manual process of how we did this. And then in the online application here, we can see the picture of the lady and gentleman and the company overview. I'm going to go into, in the next part of this presentation, how you can break this out, how you can go out and have job descriptions that focus on culture. And then at the interviewing or screening process, we align to that specific culture. So this is exactly the steps of how we do it. This was that sales funnel, how we drove them from Facebook, LinkedIn, Craigslist, employee referrals. This is exactly the funnel that we drove everybody through. And each step of the way, we did job descriptions that focus on culture, interviews that screen for alignment, and then a standardized selection process. I'm going to show you each step of this, and then I'm going to give you literally a step-by-step process that you can copy what we did in Callahan's and incorporate it and tweak it to your culture and fitting in your business. So I want to give you an overview of what this looks like from front to back, and then I'm going to hop in the next few screens and show you probably 25 to 30 examples of how we implemented this step-by-step in our business. You can literally copy and use this spring to deal with the employee crisis that we're having right now. So the first thing we do is we build it out a hosted landing page. So this is where it would go on your Craigslist, Indeed, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're driving them through and getting them to the online application process. In the bottom, we have an office entry form. So we're not only driving them online, but we're driving them through the office. Maybe they don't have a computer. That's totally fine. The next thing we did is we took our hosted landing page and the office entry form and converted that into Spanish and had someone go in and actually put a street Spanish version of it. If it was proper Spanish, a lot of our employees didn't quite conceptualize what it was getting at. So that was huge. So we have an English and Spanish version. In our instance, probably half to 3/4 of our workforce at one point was Hispanic, and they spoke Spanish as a first language. So we wanted to make sure that we could attack the English speaking and the Spanish speaking. And this works just the same in home cleaning. So with our company, Simple Growth, not trying to sell anything, but we definitely include a Spanish application there. And a lot of the cleaning companies as well as lawn care are utilizing both of those with great results. As they fill either online or in the office, we drive them through an automated process and get them on that online application process. And this is what we're going to go through soon. So this is where the online application process had an automated video slideshow with videos in it of us giving away that free plowing, what our company stood for, and a company overview with all the positions and pay rates and rooms for advancement. That's what we're going to be going over later today. But if they get through the virtual hoops on that online application process, let's say the gentleman's name is Joe that gets through it, a to-do or task pops up in the office and alerts somebody in the office within 24 hours. They have to reach out to Joe and set up the interview date and time. Before they set that up, there's a screening option there. And someone in the office would just ask a few qualifying questions. And we're going to screen to a values and culture alignment. A thing that we believe in, it was we do what we say we'll do. Well, the question could be asked by Christine in the office. Hey, Joe, how do you feel about when someone says they're going to call you back, but they never call you back? Well, if Joe says, I absolutely hate when somebody promises to do something they don't follow through, and he elaborates on it and why he's passionate about that, that could be not a red flag, but a green flag saying, okay, we have a cultural alignment. This gentleman aligns for one of the things our company stands for and hires, trains by, and fires by. So that's a cultural alignment. So we want to have a couple of those telltale signs before we schedule that interview. When we schedule the interview, Christine would enter that into a master form that we've automated. And now an automated process is going to email or text message Joe the week before and the day before that interview. I'm recommending a text message. And also recommending in that text message, it's going to tell them where to show up, what time to show up for the interview, and assign some homework. So if Joe needs a driver's license for that position, we're sending him to the DMV with an address, how to get there, and having him a driver's abstract. But I don't know about you, but every time I go to the DMV, it's a pain. So if this gentleman can go to the DMV and sit there and deal with that chaos and get this driver's abstract, he's got some skin in the game, and we know he's committed and he can follow through on a deadline. Next step is we get to a standardized interviewing package or process. So this is where we're going out and recruiting for every position in the company 1, 2, or 3 times a day. And I said it before, but I'll say it again. If you're not looking for what you need before you need it, as far as employees, it's too late. So I'm recommending the process to our success with this is going out interviewing once or twice a week for every position in the company, including my own. And this is how I found my replacement in my business. I found him probably about 1.5 years, 2 years early before I needed him, but that was okay because we were able to make it work in the budget. And when you go to find somebody to run a whole entire company at that scale, it's going to take a while to find them. So if you find that person, you may make it want to work. So as we're going out recruiting at least twice a week, we would ramp it up 2 to 3 times a year to do it 3 times a week, because historically I can go back into the company now and look at it and go, right by Memorial Day, July 4th, the week of August 18th, and the last week of October. Within a week, either way, we either fired somebody or someone quit in the last 5 to 6 years. It was repeatable, and it was a trend around the holidays or the burnout points in the season. So that's when we ramped up an extra day. So we were basically like a sports team stacking the bench. If the guys and the girls in the field aren't producing, we've got people to replace them. And then what we did is rank them in A, B, and C fashion in our software program that we used with Service Autopilot. And then the office could go in and say, I need all my A applicants from the last 10, 15, or 20 days. And we have a glorified bench or labor pool to hire from. So this is where our biggest mistake was hiring the first person through the door with a pulse. We overcame that by using that virtual bench to continue to go out. And when we had that 2-person crew and one person didn't show up, and every time we pretty much got blackmailed, if you want me to work today by myself, I need a $2 an hour raise or whatever that was. We may have given it to them to get through the day, but I will tell you what, Friday was their last day. We worked that virtual bench and replaced them. It puts you, the owner, back in control, and you have stability. And there's nothing wrong with going into the office or the shop once or twice a month, popping in and saying, hey, I got to get out of here in the next 5 to 10 minutes. I've got interviews for the first half of the day. And the team's looking around going, well, wait a minute, we're fully staffed. What's he interviewing for? We want to keep that sense of power in the owner's hands, and we're constantly building that bench and letting people know we're constantly recruiting. So it's not just a give me. You still have to show up and do what you need to do for your job. The next thing is once we hire them, we drop them into a 2-part to 3-part introduction to company culture. So this is when we went out to Arizona and got that culture training. Before we could barely get a season out of those millennial workers. This is when we indoctrinated them to our mission, vision, and values, that North Star. Once they aligned to that, we were getting 3 to 5 years out of them. So it's going to cut down on that cost of a bad hire and the cost of learning and re-entering new people in your system. The next thing is we went in and did an automated tax document collection. A lot of times in the spring, we were so busy that we never did that in a systematic way. So before we train them, right after we hire them, we're indoctrinating the culture, we're collecting their tax docs, and in the way we've set it up here in the company is it goes out to 3 automated attempts. After the 3rd and final attempt, let's say Joe didn't fill out his tax docs, a to-do or a task comes up to, say, Christine in the office, say, hey, Joe didn't fill out his tax docs. At this point, we actually recommend firing Joe. So we're screening them out online before they get to us. We're having job descriptions that fit culture, a values alignment, and a standardized selection process without bias, because we're using 5 to 6 standardized questions to interview everybody, and then some additional ones on top. But the main core are standardized. We're ranking them A, B, and C with interviewers' comments, and now we're screening them out again with a standardized process of onboarding them that doesn't need the business owner or manager. So if you want to leave your business for a day or 30 days in my time and become the way I did and become an absentee owner, this system was needed. So whether it's manual or eventually automated, this process does work. Now the final step in the green was when I wanted to finally become an absentee owner and not have to show up every time we hired a new employee, all the training was revolving around me as the business owner. So what we did is literally took about a $50 or $60 tripod from Amazon, a smartphone and a $100 wireless mic, and made videos over about a month and a half, how to use each type of piece of equipment. So stand-on mower, a walk-behind mower, a weed whacker, stick catcher, how to trim shrubs, how to put in mulch via wheelbarrow bag, whatever that was. Then we embedded these videos in landing pages, and we created an automated system online that would take Joe through a 6-step series of the 5 core services that we'd offer. And now we've created this own little business in a box. It's our franchise without franchisees. But if I ever got hit by a bus or want to leave for 30 days, the business and the training is not revolving around me. It's a standardized process that everyone's being trained to the same exact process. The problem before this is when we had a manager, eventually the training started to look like the manager, not the way our estimating production system was based on. So we want to standardize that and create a video process to duplicate it. The next problem was when we went into our software program, Service Autopilot, is every time we hired a new admin, I would physically have to go spend a month and a half to 2 months training that person. The system was not standardized. So what we did is we created a series of about 36 to 38 videos over another 6 modules with tests that drove the software program from lead acquisition through estimating, through follow-up, through scheduling, billing, and contracts. Now we created a systematic way to onboard a internal employee, or if you're using a virtual assistant or a VA, you could use the same kind of system. So that process now has standardized it and relieved the stress off the owner and the manager. Then the last two things we did is we created an automatic employee contract tracking process and handbook fulfillment process. So a lot of times when we get busy in the spring, especially, we forget to get those things taken care of the way we should. We created an internal checklist with an automation that made sure what should happen happens without the business owner. So this is the way we're tackling it, and we've done it. So as we go into this, I want to give you an idea how we create that virtual bench, and then I'm going to show you the step-by-step directions to create that cultural alignment from before and during the hiring process. But creating prospects as leads in your CRM, your customer relationship management software, and tracking the source is a great way of doing it. So in Service Autopilot, we had all our employees and potential employees, and we tracked them as leads. And as they came off of a Craigslist ad or Facebook ad or employee referral, we were able to track that. We were able to track the cost for all the advertisements. And just like a new customer, we were able to say how many customers came from Facebook and how much did it cost us to acquire a new customer. Through this process, we're able to go and say how many employees came from each advertising source, how much did it cost us on average to get that new employee, and how long did they stay with the company. And I will tell you, there is better quality employees on average at a certain cost from different avenues based on Facebook, Craigslist, Indeed, or different referrals from your existing employees. So this is something, whether it's pen and paper or no matter how you want to track it, you want to track this, in my opinion, because it will give you a non-emotional benchmark of where your best employees are coming from, how much it's costing you to hire those new employees, potentially the cost of a bad hire, and how long on average you can expect each one of those people to stay with your business. And when they start getting to the end of that tenure, we can start to go out and ramp up that recruiting process. So here we go. We're going to get into it. And one of the biggest things I alluded to it is creating a slideshow or a video to show career advancement in a culture to attract those A players. So this can be done through either a Google slide deck or PowerPoint recorded and done through a product called Wistia, where they have the thing called a turnstile last name and email. So we can track either beforehand if they've put their information in, actually watch the video, or at the end of the video, we can actually have it pop up and require them to put their name and information in to actually fill out the application. Or you can just leave it wide open. Traditionally, I would leave it wide open, especially with the labor market we're having. We don't want to create any barriers, but we want the A players to have the ability to engage and have an emotional connection with our culture and show them the career advancement. Or what we first started out doing in our company is we literally would bring them in an office, either in multiple groups or one-on-one. I'd recommend multiple groups, especially in the spring. But we would have a big TV in the office and we would run them through this slideshow that I'm about to show you. Or if it was a one-on-one, we may just pull out a laptop. So this is the actual company overview that we used for my company in upstate New York for several years. We had part of the crew. The pictures obviously need to be updated. As of the end of last year, we were somewhere between 18 and 19 trucks out in the field. But this is what we actually did, and I really didn't change it up. So this is what you're going to see. It's about a year and a half, probably about 2 years old. But it's going to give you the idea of what we did, and it still worked extremely effective. Brenna wanted to ask, is this recorded? Yes, absolutely. Everybody watching that gets to the end of the webinar will get a link to it and be able to see the whole thing in its entirety as well. So what we did here is we went over our history. We were founded in 1994. Originally, we were home and lawn maintenance when I started out, literally as a snot-nosed kid out of my parents' garage, pushing a lawnmower in the neighborhood, trying to get money to cover my car insurance. And then we incorporated in 2003 as Callahan's Lawn Care after I got out of college. So we wanted to set a foundational history of how long we had been doing this. Who we are today. So like I said, this is probably about a year and a half, 2 years old, but this will give you an idea of where we're at. We had a fleet of, actually need to be updated. We had a fleet of 17 to 18 trucks. We employed 23 to 25 employees peak season, a full-time sales staff, Summer and winter operations, we were servicing 650 lawns a week on average and servicing around 600 residential driveways and 69 to 70 commercial parking lots. We were plowing over 180 acres of pavement, internal and subcontractors. This was a picture of the fleet in the early days. So we showed everybody what it looked like. And then we evolved into the next slide, probably about a year and a half to 2 years later, where it drove out to probably 8 or 9 trucks. And then we drove out to this one here, where we evolved into about 17 or 18 trucks and growing. So we wanted to show them the continual growth as a visual representation, so they had an understanding that we weren't just talking about it, but we were actually doing it. The next thing was we went in and showed them, hey, we've got a full-time sales team. We had 2 of these cars running around the city, literally full-time, pretty much 11 months a year, going out and selling more work, whether it was residential and commercial. So we built a team and a system to go out and grow and scale the business. This is what it looked like in the morning. So we told them, hey, we are requiring to be at the shop at 7 a.m. That's when we start. We work out of mini storage units, believe it or not. We did have a shop after a divorce. I actually sold the shop and went to mini storage units. So we would have 17 or 18 trucks lined up across here, and we wanted to let them know this is what it looks like. When you get in, there'll either be a tablet or an iPhone in the truck loaded already with your schedule. You're going to clock in and clock out of the mobile. The products we use to service autopilot to do this. We showed them examples. We got some walk behinds. We got zero turn. We've got a standardized fleet of all Exmark equipment. I really don't care what kind of equipment you're using, but we wanted to let them know the professionalism and the seriousness of the fleet and what we were doing. We also showed that, hey, we're going to have some enclosed trailers. We have some open trailers. We have dump trailers. You may be driving one of the 2 dump trucks or a pickup truck. So this is what you're getting to. This is what it actually looks like on a daily basis. The future, progressive growth, the addition of 2 new crews a year is what we were trying to average. We were hitting that and actually going beyond that. Professional advancement options for key employees. If you want to grow the business, the options were there. The Callahan way. So our goal was to exist and be the leader in upstate New York landscape maintenance while providing reliable and honest service. Our goal was to exceed a customer's expectations, providing prompt service within budgetary constraints, and accomplish this providing truly professional service and making sure people were 110% satisfied with our work. We wanted to get that alignment to this culture and what we went to and stood for. Who is Callahan's? We're family owned and operated. We have qualified personnel. We have no service charges. And on the bottom of the screen, you really can't see it, but we have guaranteed customer satisfaction. So if the customer called back, we would go out, no questions asked, to fix the issues. So we wanted to make sure that they were aligning to what we stood for. And as we started to ask some qualifying questions after this, if there was a non-alignment, we knew that wasn't a good fit. But it wasn't like we were desperate for bodies at that point, because we were constantly interviewing and recruiting and building that virtual bench. So it allowed us to be a little more picky and get that cultural alignment and values alignment. Who we serve, we wanted to let them know that, hey, you may be on a 1/4 acre residential lot, or you may be on a 35 to 40 acre commercial HOA. We deal with residential homeowner associations and school districts and municipalities. So what does that normal day look like? A lot of guys in our area, or girls in our area that applied for these jobs were under the assumption, given the size of the business at that point, that we would be strictly doing commercial landscape maintenance and mowing. But that wasn't the case. We actually made our customer base extremely more focused on residential versus commercial, because there was less risk. And if we lost 100 residential customers, it was only a blip in the radar, because through our marketing processes, we knew we could go out and get those customers replaced. Where if we had several $30,000 or $40,000 HOAs, that was an issue. Those took several years to build that relationship and get those bids in. So we let them know what they're getting into. Is that a fit of what they're looking for? The next thing is we outlined our services. So we literally lined out, we do lawn mowing, landscape maintenance, shrub pruning, weeding, mulching, edging, fertilization. We have traditional and organic, and snow plowing, ice removal. So these are the things that you're going to be doing or potentially doing if you come with the process. We actually go out and show this is one of the big properties that we did. It was about a 35 to 40 acre complex, townhouse complex. So not only are you going to be on these small properties, but you're going to be on these big properties. And we want to just give them a taste of what the day-to-day operations look like. You are going to be getting down and dirty. You're going to be doing spring and fall cleanups. This hose weighs 45, 50 pounds. These are long days, dusty and dirty. So not only did we want a culture alignment and a values alignment, we wanted to make sure that the individual knew what they were getting into. And this wasn't a desk job. This was something you needed to be somewhat physically fit and be able to do. So we showed that through this process. You're going to be potentially moving mulch, or sometimes we subcontract out blowing mulch, or we may have bagged mulch. This is the type of equipment and things that you could be running in. So we wanted to just really be aware of what was going on and the things and the expectations that should be happening. Season and hours. This was a big one, especially with some of the millennial workers. They thought it was a 9 to 5, but really it wasn't. Spring and summer season, they're running from April 1st to November 20th ballpark. We start every day at 7 a.m. Traditionally, we would end between 3 and 5. But if it rained all day Monday, there's a good chance on Tuesday you're going to be working from 7 a.m. to dark to get caught up with the rain delay. That's an expectation. So we're setting it up front to make sure they're okay and there is no question in anybody's mind if it rains all day Monday, what Tuesday is going to look like. Fall and winter. Snow removal is not for the faint of heart. November 21st through, say, March 31st, you're on call 7 days a week and holidays. We've worked several Christmases, New Year's Eve. You can't be drinking and expect to jump in a piece of equipment. So we don't really get into their personal life, but there's an expectation that drug and alcohol use are not tolerated. And if you are going to be drinking, you need to be responsible. If the forecast calls for snow, that's something that you shouldn't be doing. And we're not going to let you in a vehicle if we smell booze or give you a breathalyzer down by the shop. So we get those things out front and just spell out what it is and what it isn't. Time considerations. We're required to work weekends if we have rain delay. Now, we did 4 10-hour days, Monday through Thursday, with the optional of Friday. But it was the expectation that you would be available all of those days if we had to. We had 2 weeks written notice, obtained time off, and approval was at the management's discretion. You maybe rework a holidays. And I don't think we had worked a major holiday in 7 or 8 years, but there had been years where we were forced to. It would rain for 6 or 7 days. We had a major lakefront community. Now, time off was first come, first serve. So if you absolutely had a barbecue on Labor Day or 4th of July that you needed to be at, the onus was now on the employee to take the time off requirement and put it in when they started or in advance. It was first come, first serve. And that's how we handled it. But we did operate at 4 10-hour days. We told them that that's what it looks like Monday through Thursday, but you were required to be available Friday through Sunday if we were backed up. Now, we would definitely try to be respectful of Sunday with different religions and church obligations, especially with our H-2B workers that were from Guatemala. They were a highly religious group of individuals that we had, and we would actually take them to church because we thought that was important. But the expectation was if we were backed up, everybody knew that they were required to be there, and no calls, no shows on those holidays or the weekends were not acceptable, and there was consequences. Why you'd want to actually work for us. We had a piece rate pay system. We had performance bonuses, on-time weekly paychecks. You didn't ever have to worry about your paycheck being cashed and bouncing. A lot of our competitors had those issues. Employee uniforms were provided. We had two-way open communication. Myself and the business manager were always available to talk to the employees. So if you had a concern or you had a way that you could make the company better, we were there. And that's not always the case in most companies. So we wanted to highlight that. That's part of our culture. We provided automated online training and then on-the-job training. So we just didn't give you a weed whacker and say, hey, go figure it out on your first day. We had a system and a process behind that. It created a standardized onboarding process that gave stability to the new employee. And then you would see a sense of relief in their face when you did this in person because they were like, oh, the last place I went to gave me this broken piece of equipment and let me figure it out on my own. The equipment wasn't safe. It didn't have a dead man. And all these things just kept coming up. So we needed to highlight that we're not a fly-by-night operation. We're going to give you on-the-job training, and we're going to follow up, continue training. Salaried employees had the ability to have paid vacation. you want to grow with us, we're going to benefit from it, and you're going to benefit as well. And just the opportunity for career advancement. So first thing we did is we tackled that piece rate pay system because most people don't know what it is or what it was. Crews would be given a daily budgeted time. So on your sheet, we'd actually take a piece of paper and write on it and just say, up here, we've got 10 budgeted hours for the day. And those hours will all add up the whole entire week. So let's say crew number 1 was budgeted for a total of 50 hours for the week, and they finish it in 40. Well, we're going to pay you for the whole 50 hours as long as you did all the jobs of the quality constraint that we needed, and you only worked 40. So for average ballpark numbers, obviously this is what we paid, but if you were making $10 an hour, on average, you basically gave yourself a $2.50 an hour raise for working harder and smarter and being efficient. Now, this was a huge benefit because if you had the right person that aligned through working through the chain of command, attention to detail, and was motivated, you've just given them to the keys to the castle. They can work harder and smarter and make more money and work less hours, or we can backload that schedule and give them the ability to continue and scale and grow their basis for pay. So that was a huge slide for us to do that. Now, even if you're not using piece rate, you may want to break something out along your pay system. Now, the next thing we did is we actually listed the positions available. So whether you started from the bottom of the top, you knew where that chain of command was and all the opportunities, literally from my job as the operations coach or owner. And then when we had that person that replaced me, all the way down to the person either weed whacking, blowing, or shoveling sidewalks. So we went through and said, hey, we have an operations coach, which runs the business. We have a head crew leader. So basically they're a crew leader, but they're in training to jump up to the next level of management. So they're running their own crew, but they're managing some crews beneath them and helping with the daily operations in the beginning and the end of the day as far as loading trucks up, checking maintenance schedules, things like that. Then we have a regular crew leader that's just a crew lead for that 2-person crew. Then we have a technician that works with that crew leader. We have a maintenance technician. That's the same kind of technician that would be on a maintenance or seasonal color crew. And then we have a fertilizing technician as well. And then we have snow plowing and sidewalk for the winter operation. But this gave us a full array of what were the spots in the business as it existed then when they came in, and where could they evolve to. So the operations coach, we literally started from the top down. Compensation was between $40,000 and $100,000 a year plus bonus. Perks were a company car, a company iPhone, and a company computer. Their responsibilities that fell underneath that was to oversee daily budgets, so budget versus actual, quality control on residential and commercial, and dealing with complaints from the consumer, training new employees, assist in the interview and hiring process, assist in sales, and run the customer love team. This was something we put together to help reduce new customer turnover and improve the customer experience. So one of our things was we wanted to give, our core values and mission was we want to give you the lifestyle you desire. And that was twofold facing. So it was internal because we wanted to give our employees the lifestyle that they desired. So whether it was getting out of work early to see their kid's baseball game or their daughter's ballet class, or make as much money as possible in the summer. And we also wanted to give our consumer, our customers, the lifestyle they desired. Maybe they wanted to go out and see their kid's game or ballet class, and they were worried about getting the lawn done. They were these personal hurdles around their house that we could solve, gave them that desired lifestyle to have their weekends back and do what they wanted to do. So it was two-facing, and it served our internal customers, which are our employees, and our external customers, which were obviously our customers. So that was part of that customer love team, if you wanted to know what that was. The next thing was our head crew leader. So this was a crew leader that had additional responsibilities. Pay range at this point was between $30,000 and $40,000 a year. They managed daily and yearly responsibility for all mowing and maintenance crews. They oversaw the QC of their crew, as well as assisted the company coach with some QC. They engaged in performance reviews and had promotional advancement available to potentially get to an additional layer of management or that head company position. And it was really interesting in our company because I was very transparent. At that point, for several years, I wanted to be more of an absentee owner and be kind of that more of that Michael Gerber, working on it, not in it, trying to build systems and processes to scale And I didn't want to be involved in more of the firefighting activities. And that was apparent when we told these people that, hey, my position as the business owner is up for grabs if you have the work ethic and the skill set and the alignment to our culture and values. So it was just a very transparent thing that the advancement was there and it was available, and it brought in the better players. The next thing is that crew leader. So that's that we ran 2-man crews. If we had multiple, like a 30 or 40 acre property, we would bring in probably like 2-man crews or 3 2-man crews, go in and take care of that, and then we would disperse for the rest of the day when that was done. But everything in our business, right or wrong, we did it in 2-man crews because that was the most efficiency, and for drive time, non-billable overhead, that worked with our numbers. So just to give you an idea, if I'm constantly coming back to 2-man crew, those are some of the reasons why we did that. That crew leader is going to recruit to the head crew leader, and that head crew leader reports to the company coach. So we're creating that chain of command, and we worked within it, and everything that was done, we documented internally and externally. Hourly wage on that was $14.18. Salary was somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 a year. They managed that one truck and the crew. They worked within that budgetary constraint, and they maintained the quality on their crew. It managed the equipment for daily use, so checking the oil, making sure the blades were changed, oil filters, air filters, whatever that looked like on that type of crew. But they were responsible for their crew in managing the technician underneath them. The lawn mowing technician reported to that crew leader. The pay was between $12 and $15 an hour when we made these slides. Salary was between $20,000 and $25,000 a year. They were also required to work within the budgetary constraints, perform quality work, and properly utilize the equipment as they worked underneath that crew leader. The realities of the work, as we got to the end of this, we wanted to kind of scare some people away. But these were realities as we did it. You will be working outside. We have extreme temperatures, rain, sleet, and snow. So if you think you're going to be working inside or only working when it's dry and sunny out, that is not an expectation. You will be in the elements. During peak season, we would expect you to work 70 hours plus a week. Now, that was the exception, and it probably wouldn't happen a lot. But occasionally there was some years where we had just ridiculous overtime. In the spring or the fall, because of the weather, we had to get those cleanups done within the confines of the weather constraints. We had commercial clients that didn't care that it rained for 5 months. It just 5 days or 5 months. It didn't matter. The cleanups had to be done by the end of the fall, and they had to be done in the spring before a certain time. So whatever it was, we may be working 6-7 days a week to get that work done. That's the exception, but it's expected. If we have to, you be there and be available. Other things we talked about is just the seasonal elements of bee springs, poison ivy, sunburn. We're sorting them out to make sure that they know what they're getting into. We're weeding out the weak links right now. And then we went in and showed pictures. So this is a picture of a guy that was doing sidewalk salting at one of our commercial properties. And he had been out there probably 12, 13 hours in a wet, freezing drizzle. The guy was soaked, probably went through 3-4 different pairs of clothes, just absolutely miserable. We wanted to show people, if you're getting into this work, it's not for the faint of heart for some of the stuff you're going to be doing. We want to make sure that you're okay with it. So first of all, we're attracting them. We're getting the culture alignment, the values alignment, the room for advancement. But if it's someone just graduated college and thinking that it's a desk job, it's not. We all know that. Even in home cleaning, that's a tough industry. If you're on your hands and knees working those tiles or scrubbing the mirrors, I'm telling you, that's not easy work. It can be exhausting after several homes in a day or commercial cleaning. So waxing and stripping those floors. So we want to give them the realities of whatever our industry is and what it literally looks like in your business. Final things is the realities of work here is we showed a hedgerow. This was probably about 1/4 to a half a mile hedgerow. It was 90 degrees out. Guy's got his protective or his reflective gear on and his head protection. And he's got a gas-powered hedge trimmer that weighs about 25 to 30 pounds. And it's just back-breaking work. So we wanted to allow the applicant to understand what they were getting into and what they weren't getting into. So if, hey, this isn't a good fit for you, let's not waste your time and let's not waste my time. We can shake hands and move on. But if this is a good reality of work, while we're in person or you're watching this video, let's get you to that application and get you in and start helping you and getting you on that virtual bench. And the last thing we did is closed it up for questions. So that's everything I've got for you. That's the step-by-step directions that we did in our company. As we got it to between 18 and 19 crews or trucks out there, Didn't able to scale from, itty bitty up to that. Nothing was perfect, but those are some of the pain points that we highlighted and overcame to go out and scale to that million mark and way beyond. So I've got a few minutes here as we wrap up to the end of the hour. Anybody watching live, if you want to type your questions in the chat box, I'm happy to answer them live. And I appreciate everybody hanging on, and hopefully, this was helpful. But that being an entrepreneur, being a business owner is a lonely place. And if not anything else, hop on those Facebooks, get some support, ask some questions, because you're not the only person going through it. Trust me. And I thought I was, until I found a group of friends that were in the lawn care industry through basically Jonathan Potoshnik, the owner of Service Autopilot, the co-owner. But two of the guys that I met were Chad Cranston and Garrett Matthews. And I tell you what, throughout the last 7 to 10 years, those guys, between them and some Facebook groups, have been a lifeline, because your friends, your family, and the business owner down the street doesn't understand sometimes what you're going through if you're serious about growing and scaling a business. Most of your competitors are going to hit these points of employee issues and start to scale back and go down to 1 or 2 crews and try to keep doing themselves. And that's the recipe sometimes for disaster. And there's nothing wrong if you want to be by yourself, be a solo entrepreneur, have 1 or 2 employees. But I will tell you that things do get easier, but it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But if you follow this process here, at least with a slide deck and having that values alignment in a video or slide deck that you use, it will help recruit the better employees for you. And it will also, it will help take the stress off you. So Mike here has, how can you automate all of this without using Service Autopilot? I spent a lot of money on different software. Mike, the software program that we use is Service Autopilot. We also automated this process in another product called Infusionsoft. So we've, as far as the automated process of this, the first thing we did was we automated our sales process. We grew so fast, we literally almost went out of business. So we had to create the process I just showed you for employees. And then the next step of your automations is repetitive tasks. So those are the daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, quarterly things that you're constantly having to tell your staff what to do. And if you're not there every day telling them what to do, the business falls apart, and it causes you to be a slave to the business. At least it did in my point. So we created repetitive tasks that told people what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And then if it didn't happen, we had a red flag via text or email. It would alert the business manager in order to jump back in. But Mike, whatever software program you're using, if you're looking to automate it, look back at this, use that blueprint. And the best part about it is when you create a blueprint yourself, is you want to literally go across the perfect path, and then all the things along the way that not if they're going to happen, but when they happen. So what happens when no one shows for an interview? What happens if we hire them and they don't show up? Or what happens if we hire them, we got to fire them and they quit? So as you're looking to automate that process, that's kind of the next evolution. But you want to look for all the good things and the bad things that happen along the way and how you actually incorporate them. Any other questions here while we're wrapping up? We got a few more minutes here. Anything on the process or anything along the service industry, I'm happy to answer here candidly live on this webinar. All right, well, it looks like there may not be any other questions, but thanks for staying to the end. What I will do is my team, in the next 24 to 40 hours, will get you a link to this webinar. If you're a Simple Growth client, thank you again. If you're in the general public, unfortunately, we will not be hosting these to the live public anymore. This is an added benefit to our Simple Growth clients, well over 300 of them using our automation process and systems on Service Autopilot. But keep a lookout. We'll be doing some Facebook Lives, not as in depth, but to help you with these business problems along the way. But if you are a Simple Growth client, paying that monthly support and update fee for any of our automation products, these will be coming out several times a month. They're going to be private, invitation only, and then we're going to be getting you a private password protected list of all the historical webinars that we're putting out there. Brian has a question here. With most applicants looking for a job immediately, how do you effectively stack the virtual bench? What % of the bench applicants come on board after you call them back in a few weeks? Brian, absolutely, really good question. So as we're going to stack that virtual bench, obviously we're going to have some attrition. Some people are going to go to the competitors. But what we've found is as we're stacking that virtual bench, as we're doing that cultural alignment, as we're doing the values alignment. We've actually had ladies and gentlemen go to other companies, and when we call them back 2 to 3 weeks later, they actually jump ship and come back because they wanted what we had to offer. And it seems like a waste of time, but everybody that comes into the door, you're not going to hire. So you need to be able to have a constant screening process, and you need to be able to be, that virtual bench is a labor pool, and you're creating your own internal labor pool. And as soon as you stop doing that and your employees know that you stopped doing that, they've got you pinned against the wall and they are in control, and you have no power to continue to grow and scale that business at a reasonable rate. And that number one bottleneck to rapid business growth and market domination is the lack of employees on that virtual bench and having alignment to the culture and systems that you would use to scale that bench. Hopefully that makes sense. Every time that we ever got in trouble is when I got laxed and said, hey, we got the perfect team. We don't need somebody. And inevitably, maybe they had to leave town or something happened. But that's a big pain point. I would recommend at least once a week, twice a week, stack the bench. And you can put them into a long-term nurture. Basically what that is even if they went somewhere else and we're not ready to hire them, we can continue to engage with them via text or email once a month to let them know what our company's doing, all the wins, all the successes, and let them start to have an emotional connection of us still communicating with them via text or email as the year goes on. Any other questions as we wrap this up? All right. Well, once again, I appreciate it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. It was helpful. Simple growth clients from automations or anybody or deep dive clients that did either 1 or 2 day on-site with myself, the Simple Growth team will also have access to this as well. And I just wanted to thank everybody for being a client of Simple Growth, and just the general public that's not a client of Simple Growth. I thought that this was such an important issue that we're facing right now on top of rain, tornadoes, and extreme heat across the US and Canada that it was valuable to share with everybody. So until next week on Facebook Live for the general public, we'll see everybody. And next week, we will see the Simple Growth clients week after week here in these special webinars. And we're going to be covering employee systems, sales systems, automations, workflow, setup in-service autopilot, all the commonly asked questions, and the Simple Growth preferred streamlined workflow. So it should be a lot of value to help you build and grow and scale your business. And whether you want to work on it and work on it and not in it like Michael Gerber, or you want to become an absentee owner, similar to what I did in my business, that we're just going to give away those little takeaways that helped us. Thanks a lot, Chester. Really appreciate it. All right, guys, I am off to go build some content, and we'll speak on the Simple Growth weekly or bi-weekly customer success webinar series.